Now that you've got your feet wet with demand elasticity, you know what elasticity is. Percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in price. And it just tells us that when the price changes 1%, how much does quantity change? Of course, with price elasticity of demand, the quantity change will be in the opposite direction. Now, because it's always in the opposite direction, we report the elasticity coefficient as just an absolute value or a positive number. Well, that isn't the only elasticity. In fact, elasticity is simply the percent change in one variable divided into the percent change in another variable. So you could have a zillion different elasticities. So one such elasticity, we'll go over a couple is all, not a zillion. But something of interest is how quantity changes with respect to a change in income. This is called income elasticity. That's it. You already know what elasticity is. Well, I guess there's a few things we can say about it. With income elasticity, the sign matters. Here we go. Let's say percent change. Okay, well, let me write it out. Let's say income goes up by 10% and the quantity of a good goes down 5%. And that will give us negative 0.5. Okay? So income goes up 1% and quantity goes down 0.5%. So the elasticity coefficient, income elasticity coefficient is minus 0.5. That sign tells us something. The good fell in response to an increase in income. It went the opposite direction of income. That is what the elasticity, that is what that negative sign says. This particular good goes the opposite direction as income. What does that tell us? What kind of good is that? Inferior. That's an inferior good. On the other hand, as you recall, an inferior good is one that we consume inferior goods because we can't afford what we really would like to consume. Okay, so income goes up. The top ramen noodles demand goes down. So if income were to go down, let's go the other direction. In this example, if income were to go down by 1%, then we'd expect to see an increase in demand there, quantity. So the sign just tells us that it goes the opposite direction of income. That's an inferior good. Well, let's, here we go. Well, here we don't go. Let's say income goes up 10% and quantity goes up 5%. Elasticity coefficient is 0.5. Means that income changes 1%. Quantity changes 0.5%, the same direction. So income goes up, quantity goes up. What kind of good is that? Well, when it's a positive sign, whoa, what the heck? if it's a positive sign, we know we have a normal good. Okay, that's it for income elasticity. We'll say more about that in a minute. But let's look at cross-price elasticity now. This is price elasticity of demand, where price changes and we see what quantity does. But now we're going to do something a little different. Actually, we didn't write the notation here, but let's go ahead and do it. Let's say that the price of good A changes, and we're looking at the quantity, how the quantity of good A changes. So it's the same good. We didn't bother to do that because it was the same good. But now things are a little different. With cross-price elasticity, they're not going to be the same good. With cross-price elasticity, we're looking at the price of good A is changing, but we're looking at how the quantity of good B changes in response to that change in the price of good A. So, let's say that the price of good A goes up 10%, and let's use a different number, 15%. Demand for good B increases 15%. So the elasticity coefficient, 15 divided by 10 equals 1.5. And here the sign matters too. Okay, so what we see here is the price of good A goes up 1%, and in response, quantity of good B goes up 1.5%. What kind of good is that? Well, if people are buying more of good B in response to a change in the price of good A, they must be substitutes. Right? Let's say this is Twinkies and this is Zingers. Okay? There we are. Now, percent change in quantity of good B in response to change in price of A. Let's say the price of good A goes up 1%, or let's say 10, and then in response to that, quantity of good B goes down 15%. So now we have a negative 1.5. So here we have good A going up in price by 1%, and as a result, good B goes down. Quantity of good B goes down 1.5%. Well, the main thing is the sign there. And what kind of goods are these? How are they related? Complements. They must be good that they're used together. So this could be, I don't know, breakfast cereal and milk. Okay, I want milk on my cereal. Okay, if the price of cereal goes up, I'm going to buy less cereal. That's the law of demand. But because I buy less cereal, I buy less milk too. Because, I don't want milk unless I have cereal with it. Okay. So, the signs matter. The calculation is exactly the same. It's just that we're changing what's in the numerator and the denominator. We've got the price or income, price of a good, one of the goods, and then the quantity of another related good. And let's say that is 0. What does that mean? Well, it means they're completely unrelated, okay? So let's say the price of Twinkies goes up, and quantity of heavy road making equipment, bulldozers and graders, doesn't change at all with the price of Twinkies. Whoops, that's supposed to be price. Well, we wouldn't expect those two to be related as complements or substitutes. Okay, so that is cross-price elasticity. Now we've got one more, and you kind of got your feet wet there with a Paul Salma video where he talked about supply, but it's the same thing, the price, and except for quantity demanded, it's quantity supplied. Okay, we would expect that to be positive, right? So if the price goes up by 10% of a good, let's say quantity supplied goes up 10%. So 1% change in price. We've got a 1% change in quantity supplied. And again, because of the upward sloping supply curve, we are not surprised by that. Price goes up, and quantity supplied goes up. So if it's less than 1, again, it's inelastic. If it's equal to 1, it's unit elastic. And if it's greater than 1, it's elastic. So it's just the same thing as quantity demanded or price elasticity demand. But we have, we're looking at the quantity supplied. So we've got income elasticity, and that is percent change in quantity divided by the percent change in income. And if it's positive, we have a normal good. If it's negative, we have an inferior good. And then we have cross-price elasticity, percent change in quantity of good B in response to the percent change in the price of good A. We've got two different goods going. If it's positive, they must be substitutes. If the quantity of good B goes up in response to a price of good A, so price of A goes up, people stop buying less of good A, and they buy B instead. If it's negative, it is a complement. Okay? Price of good A goes up, they buy less of A, but they also buy less of B. Well, they must be goods that are used together. And then, of course, we've got supply elasticity. And that is the percent change in quantity supplied in response to a percent change in price, the price of its own good. And we expect that to be a positive number. And as firms will respond positively to an increase in supply, or negatively to a decrease in supply, increase in price, and negatively to a decrease in price. So that's pretty much the elasticities we're gonna deal with. Okay, and there's other elasticities. As you take labor and economics, there's a elasticity of labor, supply, and there's all kinds of elasticities that you can use in economics and various applications.